Welcome, Reed.
Guys, thank you so much for having me. The dangerous duo, always looking very, very dapper, as we were just saying in the green room early on. So great to be here.
Thank you, Reed.
Awesome.
Thank you. Now, Reed, we usually start asking our guests to start off with their story in real estate, but we wanted to take a step back and start with you immigrating to the US. As most know, the process of immigration to a new country can be very difficult, let alone becoming successful in that new land. So please start with why the US and your journey.
Yeah, look, the US for me, it was really more of a ticking the box. I backpacked through the United States back in 2009, and I fell in love with New York City. I fell in love with a girl. So I actually had traveled here beforehand and had moved back to Australia, was sitting in a day job and just knowing that I wanted to do more with my life. And that's when the journey of real estate started. But the moving to the US story is really just about being curious. I wanted to live as an expat in New York City. I didn't want to just be a tourist. I wanted to live there. It was a city that was full of vibrance and life. And I just wanted to say, hey, I lived in New York City for a period of time. And the goal was really just to move here for a couple of years to be an expat, and then move back to Australia. And I'll say for your listeners, my background's in structural engineering. So I didn't have a job when I moved here. I had to come in on a tourist visa, and I went knocking to all the engineering firms around until they gave me a job. But I'm also very fortunate to be an Australian, because the reason I was able to move here was Australia and the US have a really great working visa for people who have a job like a structural engineer. And so it was, again, the goal was just to move here, chase a girl, chase a little bit of a dream, and then maybe move back to Australia after a couple of years. I'm now been here nearly 10 years later, and a lot of things have changed, but for the good. But that's really the start of coming to the US.
Yeah, no, for sure. And when you talk about the US, I mean, the US does have a bit of a bad rap at times with their foreign policy and obviously, wars and things as such, and guns. But I believe this concept of being American is like in someone's heart. I've always felt American without being an American. So it's unique. It's also Hollywood and growing up, a lot of your heroes are Americans, like Muhammad Ali, or that might be a little bit past certain people's ages, but Floyd Mayweather, or other greats in sports, or Michael Jordans of the world, and others. But this concept of America is more than just a country. I think it's today's empire, right? Like at past when certain empires ruled the world. Today, it's the American empire that rules the world. So I've always felt a bit of American inside me. So
and one day we will be American.
Well, I completely agree with that. I think that pop culture you mentioned there, it has a big influence on Australia. Obviously, you guys being Canadian, you have the same sort of pedigree as we do. British colony. But you sort of have this sort of influence from the US. But you have a good sense of humor. You're a little bit more down to earth. But I understand what you mean in terms of the epicenter, or not the epicenter, but everyone has sort of an itch to scratch of wanting to come and make it in the US, you know what I mean, as an international person. So, and I know you two are both very familiar with that sort of feeling.